Okay, we're going to turn this on. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Dave Markland, who currently writes about state and local politics for KNBC's California Fault Line. He contributes to LA Met blogs, where he served as the city captain. You can explain that. From August 2006 to August 2008. And very timely, he also edits Creepy LA, which is the Los Angeles Halloween blog. So, welcome, Dave.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here. It's pretty humbling to be here in a room speaking in front of everyone from Tony Pierce to Eric Richardson and guys from everybody else from Town, LA. It's pretty cool. So, city captain is kind of an uneditor. And it was actually, they wanted to have somebody, they don't want to edit posts of Metro blogging. Once you have an account, once you're set up there to be a writer, it's write about the city of LA, and you're free to go from there. And so as captain, you're kind of there just to handhold a little bit for people with, you know, making sure the posts look good, whenever possible, and answering questions and trying to encourage people to write. Nobody's paid, so it's really hard to force them to write, but as much encouraging as possible with ideas or whatever. That's kind of what a city captain is. I haven't really prepared anything, but I thought I'd go through a list of the reasons why I love blogging, and especially with blogs. And since most of you are bloggers, you might agree. But number one, the coolest thing, number 5, how many do I have here? It's a top 5 list. Yeah, exactly, so real quick. They're in no particular order, but let's pretend they are. Number 1, motivation to see doing research things. When I started blogging, the coolest part was, at first, was knowing that you had an audience, but it quickly became motivation to go out and do things. The first blog I made was called Offline Adventures of an Internet Junkie, with the intent being that it was going to get me away from the computer and go out and do things so I could write about them. And I can't say it really worked, because most of the time it would just make me stay online more and research more and write more opinion pieces or whatever, because it was cool to know that people were reading your stuff. But when I joined Metro blogging and started writing more about the city, it became a good avenue to go out and do stuff, because I knew I had a large audience. For example, probably the coolest thing that I got to do with that was I got to attend the primary debates at the Kodak with Obama and Clinton there. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been blogging for a couple of years and didn't have some credibility in order to get the press pass. I also, around that same time, I went down and I ate a $20 burger at Mayor Riordan's restaurant downtown LA, which I think is like 10 pounds. I didn't really eat the whole thing, but I think I wrote I did. So, the other cool thing is being able to share information with people. Not just your opinion. The opinion is kind of cool, but if you can present information to people about like weird laws, or lately about the election, like things that they should know in terms of where to vote. Like I wrote about that you could vote at 5 different Wendy's locations up until midnight, and not vote, but register at 5 different Wendy's locations around LA on Monday, which I couldn't find that information really many other places. I think LAist wrote about it. And people really dug it. I got a lot of emails from that thanking me. Writing about yellow zone parking, which everybody writes about, and some people really appreciate it. Everybody else hates you for spreading the word that you can park in yellow zones after 6 o'clock every night and on weekends. Creating dialogue and comments is always cool. When people start responding to stuff, that's always the best part. As long as you're being relatively nice, can't expect too much, but getting people to talk about stuff is pretty cool in a city that I think is kind of insular sometimes. Being a genuine news source is also really cool. Sort of like with just getting on information, being able to break news and let people know what's happening in their city in terms of, like with the wildfires, and we've got writers all over the place who are posting pictures and giving people, who are, either they're seeing it too, but they don't know how widespread it is. Sometimes the newspapers really can't get to it, obviously, but even the news stations, they've got a camera crew in one spot. They're not able to get everywhere. But with blogs, it's not just that you can write about it on one blog. You can look at 10 blogs and get the same news in 10 different perspectives. Another really cool thing is I've gotten a couple jobs and actually paid to do stuff from blogging. most recently with the KNBC blog, which was hired to do. We've also gotten interviews based on the fact that people saw that I write for Metro Blogging, which is always kind of nice. And probably the number one thing, and which is totally true, I'm glad it's the number one, is meeting fellow bloggers like you guys and the community that it builds. It's a really interesting type of people. Like every kind of blogger is a different kind of mind. People think about things a little more deeply, I'd say, than people who, don't blog, or at least it brings out the best of people for the most part. People are really interested in hearing each other and having dialogue and hearing what everybody else has to say. That's pretty much it.
So we're going to start out with a couple of questions, and since I have the microphone, I get to ask questions. One of the things that I ran across, and I can't quite remember who it was, if it was, Engadget or TechCrunch or one of those, said that, starting a blog is so passé, that if you, don't even think about that today. If you really want to be, have a voice, you should become involved in the social networks and make that your blog. So I just wanted to what do you think about that?
Going to social networks versus
just, the whole idea of, they kind of were saying, blogs are passé, not necessarily dead, but, it wasn't like they were alive and thriving, and that really the next thing is social networking.
Well, it just all depends what you personally are after, what you're after, but I think the blogs aren't dead. It's just that a few years ago I was telling these people at this table too that, when it happened, it took a couple years, but it was this really cool thing that people suddenly noticed that you could publish something and everybody around the world could read it. And the problem was, of course, getting people to read it, but it was pretty amazing that somebody in England or India was commenting on a post of yours about something that's happening in your neighborhood. That's pretty impressive and kind of powerful. And by now, though, everybody kind of knows about it, so it's kind of peaked in terms of people who are trying it new, and what's kind of left are people who get it and actually have something to say, or people who haven't gotten burned out from the original crowd. So, but I don't know in terms of social networks. I really haven't seen anything else that really works the same way as blogging. I mean, it's with other social networks, there's a lot of back and forth. With blogging, it's just you and then commenters if you want them.
Other questions? I have enough questions. All right, come on, I should. All right.
You mentioned that your blogging has led to actual paid jobs. Do you make any money from the blog itself?
No.
Just
No, it's. I think newspapers are seeing that it's really hard. I think with the Halloween blog, I really thought that would make money because it was very nichey and it's a huge audience. Though I mean, people spend more money on Halloween than any other holiday besides Christmas.
Well, I'll show it up here.
CreepyLA.com.
CreepyLA.com.
Write it down. With CreepyLA, it comes up a lot. I tried to make money off of last year by pursuing people who were in the Halloween field, like people who sold costumes like Oz and Spirit, and they just don't respond. Partly it's because I don't really have enough of a crowd to. This is actually all this stuff is written by volunteer writers. Kind of came onto it, except for that's me. I'm creepy. But in terms of making money, I thought my big plan this year was to sell one of the features on the site, which is at the top, is a map of haunted Los Angeles, which I put together, which has been popular year-round. And so my plan is to do a printed version of this map, highlighting about 20 different spots around LA and sell ads around it. And even with that, it was really hard. So I haven't quite figured out how to make money. But I just put Amazon ads for the first time just onto the post about how to make a Sarah Palin costume, and in 2 days it made $50. So I think that's the most I've ever made. Pretty exciting.
More questions? Okay.
So, you mentioned breaking stories and the joy of breaking stories. Is that part of your goal always, or is it just the experience of?
It's personally like something you always hope for is to be able to stumble across something and be